Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of my Minnie Mouse fondant topper tutorial. First, let me start by apologizing guys for posting this other half of the video so late. However, I was down with the flu, I lost my voice, and as you can hear, I'm still struggling to get it back, but I'm almost there. However, we're gonna get this done today, so here we go. So I started off by covering the body of my character. This will be her arms, her legs, her torso. This part is optional in terms of doing the entire body in black fondant. You can do just the parts that are in black, which are her arms and her upper torso, only in black if you wish. However, I like to make sure that I can see the entire structure of my character before I proceed to making the clothing and so forth. So I'm just adding strips of fondant and building on my character. It's better to build a character rather than to put it on all at once. It makes it a little bit more harder and a little bit more hectic, especially if you have to go back in and take back off some of the fondant that you've added. So in little pieces, I add strips of fondant, building up my character. For the front of my character where her chest is, I make it more bulky, and her tummy, due to the shape, so that she has like a curve, so she has that nice finished shape as if she's actually dancing. Fun fact, be sure to make sure that you cover the structure of your character in floral tape. I use a white floral tape. There are green floral tape available as well. It doesn't really matter the color, just as long as it's covered. If you're still struggling with getting your fondant attached onto your character's structure, then just apply a little bit of water onto the strip of fondant before you add it onto your character structure. Now, a lot of tools aren't necessarily required to create this part of the character. Basically, I like using my hands and the back of my paint brushes if I have to, or the paintbrush itself, just to smooth out any creases. So it's pretty straightforward, but just time consuming. So finally, my needlework skills from high school are coming into play, and I'm gonna get this girl a nice little outfit. So I'm making her pants. By doing this, I'm cutting a piece of square fondant and then I'm making a slit halfway down. I'm gonna wrap around her lower torso, exactly where I want her torso to be covered, and then I'm going to use the other two halves that have been slit, one to cover each leg. Then I'm just going to use my tool. You can use an X-Acto knife if it makes it a lot easier for you. It's more comfortable. And I'm going to just slip where the joints meet and close them up by pressing them in and smoothing out any little indentations that I can. Some of these indentations may not come out right away. So what I would do is use my tool and just make impressions to make them look a part of her outfit. If you really don't want to go through the hassle of this, you can just do the top part of the character in black, and where her pants is going to meet, you'll stop with your black, and then you would apply your yellow fondant, creating her pants, and so forth. Then you can use your tool, your toothpick, make little indentations of stretch lines where there would be creases in her pants, where her feet are up between her legs, between her knees, just so that it has a little bit more lifelightness to it, and it actually looks as though she's wearing a material. Now we're gonna make her top, like in my country you'll say she wearing a belly out, but you'll probably know it as a tube top. So I'm just doing this by cutting a small piece of square fondant using a piping tool and cutting out the neck area, and then 2 semicircles on each side. Now I just enclose this all as one. I did not cut anything off on the sides. I just connected where the lines met so that the tank top will be a little flowing and creating swoops and swirls in the top with my tool or the end of my paintbrush just so that it looks as though she's twirling and the wind is under her shirt. So now I'm going to be adding some polka dot details to her pants. These polka dots are going to also be in the same color as the top, light blue. So what I'm doing is just rolling out a piece of fondant as thin as possible. Now guys, this is where you're going to learn a little bit about how fondant works. As you can see, I struggled cutting out these pieces of polka dots because it was raining in my country. It was damp and I do not have a humidifier, so my entire fondant was just wet and sticky. But to avoid this, you can just keep applying powdered sugar or cornstarch to your fondant and the surface so it doesn't stick as much as, and you can work as comfortably as. So yeah, I had to get my hands a little dirty for this part of the topper, but it was totally worth it. Just a quick break, seeing that you have reached this far in my tutorial, to remember to subscribe and press the notification bell. Now guys, I also had one pro of it raining that day, is that I did not have to use any water to stick on any pieces onto my topper. Now I'm using a piece of purple fondant just to do her socks. These were pretty easy. I made a bell shape that is small to the top, wide to the bottom, and I flattened both sides. Then I would use a toothpick, and make indentations all the way around, lines showing like the fold of the socks to give it that rough look finish. Now I made pre-holes in my sock and stretching that a little bit so I could just fit it comfortably, snugly and quickly over my stewer, rather than trying to make that hole with a stewer, which is going to make it a bit misshaped. That's it for the lower half of our topper, and now we're going to be moving on to her hands. Her hands are glove-like, and the shape of them are practically just the same rectangular bell-shaped type, but I flattened them to give me that shape of the curve of her hand. Now what I would do is cut out a triangular piece on the side. This will separate the thumb from the rest of the hand, and I will cut out her 3 fingers on the top. If you're doing a human topper, it's the same procedure. However, we're going to do 4 fingers and 1 thumb for the human being. After you've cut out the indentation for the other 3 fingers, what you will do is just play with them, roll them in between your fingers, press them down on the top, give them a nice rounded shape, play with it for a bit, and get the shape of the hand and some nice cute little fat fingers. We're also going to pre-mate the cuffs for her glove, which is the part that's hugging around her hand, and those are just 2 small balls of fondant and just flattened. It's pretty straightforward. Now, after placing your hands onto your structure, it's pretty easy to just walk away and, keep on moving. However, we're going to make this look as lifelike as possible. So we're going to add more details, and we're going to also play with the positions of each finger, making indentations with your tools and so on. If you realize that the positions of her fingers from previously, it adds so much character. I put her index finger up and I curve the other fingers under, and this will really make it look as if she's dancing. Now our head has properly set overnight, and we're just adding in the last set of details, the eyes, the 2 oval shapes, and the black piece of fondant in her mouth, just to make it have that shadowed look that her mouth is wide open. Now we're going to insert her town we're just making a small sausage shape like of pink fondant, and we're gonna rest it right between the curve of her mouth and make an exact indentation in the middle of that shape. Now we're gonna add the black to her eyes using the same oval shapes but smaller. So Minnie Mouse is working up a sweat, and we're gonna give her a headband with her bow this time. And that was simply done by rolling a piece of fondant and applying some polka dots and just cutting a thin strip and wrapping it around the base of her head. Now we're gonna start making her bow on the top. This procedure was done twice. Make sure that you have the same size piece of fondant before you start making the bows, because you will need to make sure that they're precise. Now what I've done is made a ball of fondant, and I've molded that shape into a bell-like shape first, flattened it, and then make an indentation so that it looks like a heart. And I make 2 indentations on the inside to give it those creases. We then add our polka dots on both sides, and voila, we have her bow. It is that simple. You can use a tool to make indentations on the top just so it looks more like how the bow is flowing and more details. I love details, you guys should know that. Her ears are fully dry by this time, so I'm just putting those on right away. And then the final piece to this character will be adding her eyelashes. It was pretty challenging putting on these eyelashes. However, you just want to roll your fondant as thin as possible to the point, and if you have to go back in, reshape them, and also resize them, I had to do it twice to make sure that I had the perfect lashes. So take your time. So to finish off my character, I'm just gonna simply dust her cheeks and the creases of her mouth with a darker brown, her cheeks with a bright pink, just to, you know, give her a little bit more spunk and make her look more alive. I love dusting as a finish because it adds more life to your characters, adding a little bit more shadows, and then when you take your photos, it's just such a beautiful finish. So if you do not have any luster dust, I encourage you to invest in some and practice using them. And that's it, guys. So I want to thank you guys so much for viewing my tutorial. This cake was done for my niece. This is the finished product. Happy birthday, Chelsea. She was so excited and so happy when I brought this cake to her. She cried, and it was definitely a pleasure doing it. Now guys, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Also press the notification bell so every time I post a video, you will be notified. Thanks again from VincyCakeGirl. Put it on a cake.